Welcome to the Beyond Just Leadership podcast, where it starts from within and you learn to lead deeper, lead people, and lead well. Here's your host, Stephen Alfin.
Sometimes you have plans in life, sometimes you have all these ideas. And sometimes these plans and ideas don't always go the way you would expect it to go. And last night I was actually sitting with a good friend, and I was explaining to him, because it was getting late, that I still had to record my podcast. And he kind of stopped me and says, "You're still doing that tonight." And so as I sat there for a second after he left, I realized my mind wasn't in a good place. I wasn't in a good place. And I needed to wait. And sometimes when us as leaders, we build things, or we think of things, or we coach, or we teach, a lot of times people think, hey, that leader has it all put together, or they get it. I will say in leadership, and more than ever right now, I've never felt more alone, but I've also never felt more support than I ever have. And it's a weird concept to think about. Life throws you different things, and I still go back to a couple of different monumental times in my life where I think of the movie Batman Begins, where his dad is helping Bruce, who he falls down the well, and asks him, "Bruce, what do we do? We have to learn when we fall. What do we do? We have to learn to pick ourselves back up." And so a lot of times in life, it is that way. So a lot of my whole life, I've been attacked from a personal standpoint. But it's been those instances that have taught me so much about myself and what I do. Leadership is very similar. You're going to be sitting in conversations and in rooms where you're going to question everything you believe. But that's when you have to fall back on the things and the confidence. And honestly, I said this at the beginning, I wasn't going to talk about it a ton, but you fall back on your belief. And I do that time and time again of who I am. And I know God knows who I am. So one of the things I think back is my high school career. I grew up in the Midwest. As you know, I've talked a lot about where PATC came from, the positive attitude, confidence in your thoughts. And that stems from a lot of my growth in my childhood, but mostly in my high school years. So throughout my high school year, I loved basketball. I had a specific basketball coach that was pretty hard. It was my freshman year. I made JV and actually played some varsity my freshman year in a pretty big school. And one of the things that my coach always taught me is when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And it always stuck with me because at that point in my life, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what my coach was trying to tell me about life. It was more than just basketball. Similar to what PATC stands for me, it's more than just what I did at the free throw line. It's more of what I do on a daily basis. There's more to life. And human beings are human beings. People are people. And so what he was trying to do is he was trying to teach me a very specific concept of life is hard. Leadership is hard. Talking to people, maybe it comes easy for some people, but it's hard for others. Maybe people management is hard for some people and easy for others. That's the way of life. And life is going to throw you curveballs all the time. But what he was trying to teach me is when the things get tough, because they always will be, those are the people that stand up and keep going. And those two things, the PATC from my dad and that, are two monumental things that I think about constantly in my career. The other thing was my senior year of high school. Again, another monumental moment. I was taking a Spanish class, and one of our finals was you had to speak. So I was sitting there listening to my teacher speak to me in Spanish, and when it got to my turn to respond, I told the teacher, I have no idea what you're saying. She tried again. Again, my response was somewhat similar. And she pulled me aside after the class, told me that I did not do well in that portion of the test. The other test, I did fine, which was a written section. And she goes, "You will never learn to speak Spanish in your life." And I thought, that's an interesting thing to say to somebody, but maybe she was speaking the truth. And so I took it of like, maybe I will never learn Spanish. Well, fast forward a couple of months, I wanted and always had a desire to serve a mission for our church, to go do service. And a lot of times when you do this, you have to submit paperwork, and then they kind of select. You don't get to pick where you go, but also I'm paying my way. So a couple months later, I get my assignment, and my assignment was to go to Chile. So in this moment, you start to think to yourself, somebody just told me I'm never going to be able to learn Spanish, but yet I'm assigned to go to a Spanish-speaking area. So months go by. In August, I think of 27, if I remember right, the time, I got on a plane and traveled to Chile. The first 3 months were extremely difficult, and this kind of taught me a lot about me as an individual, and I'm going to get to why this is important in leadership. But in this moment in Chile, for the first 3 months, I couldn't understand anybody. I was trying. And you put forth all this effort, and it's hard. New culture, you have a culture shock, new food, new people. And some of the rules in this at the time were I could only email my family. I could not call them but 2 times a year. And those 2 times were, I think, Christmas and Mother's Day, if I remember right. And so at this time, I felt alone. Yeah, you have some individuals you're there with, but a lot of times those individuals also don't speak your native language. Some do speak English, some don't. And so you're sitting here in this moment thinking to yourself, did I choose the right thing? Did I do the right thing? And then it was about 3 to 4, maybe even 5 months. I was sitting in a room speaking to, or trying to speak to some individuals. And then once we left this home that we were in, the person I was with leaned over to me and said, "Do you understand what you just said?" I apologize. I didn't realize it, but I was speaking fluently. And from that point on, because of the effort, and because of God, I was able to speak. So fast forward to the end. I was there for 2 years. People started asking me, "Are you Argentine?" Just because I had hair. I don't have hair now. And it was just like a cool experience because like you think of everything people go through. Like you start connecting the dots. Steve Jobs says this all the time, or he gave a speech at Stanford and he said this all the time, that when you look back and you connect the dots, you don't realize everything in your past kind of leads you to where you're supposed to be going. And then what's crazy is my wife last night started sharing with me some things. Just because, as you can tell, yesterday was a hard day. You have those days. You have hard weeks. You have difficulties. And so you kind of, as leaders, a lot of people aren't vulnerable about this, which is the problem in leadership. Leaders don't have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. The only thing I wish I could do is touch one person's life, that they could see the impact that one leader can have on an individual. I just mentioned 2 people who had an impact on me that were positive. My basketball coach that I said, hey, when the going gets tough, the tough get going, and my dad with PATC, which is what I teach and preach about. But there's also some negative things that happen in your life that also teach you a lesson. I mentioned that one with my teacher my senior year. And so my wife showed me this last night, this quote, that some people plot your downfall and end up paving your breakthrough. This is totally true. That a lot of times you have people in life boosting you up because you need it. Even as a leader today, I still need it. Even as old as I am, I still need it. You know, last week, last Saturday night, I believe, I attended a movie with my daughter. It was the Spider-Man movie. And a lot of times I'm going to these movies just like, for fun. My daughter loves to go to movies. It's one of the things her and I do. We go on daddy-daughter dates. I try to go on one-on-one time with my kids all the time, specifically because it's about building relationships and understanding them and helping them grow, helping them learn, helping them fail, because failure is the quickest way to grow. And so what was fascinating was in this movie, there's a scene that hit me kind of hard. But the scene is essentially Spider-Man is sitting on this bed where he grew up, and spoiler alert, I guess you could say, one of the main other characters, Jean Grey, from I guess you could say the X-Men world, can get into people's minds. And she's struggling herself in the movie this whole time of being alone. And so she gets into Peter Parker, Spider-Man's mind, and they're sitting there, and she makes a comment like, I just don't want to be alone anymore. And Spider-Man makes a comment back, well, you have me. Like, we should never go through life alone. And what's fascinating about that concept is leadership is a lot of aloneness. You sit in situations where people are going to tell you things that are extremely difficult. You're going to have difficult conversations. And everything in life kind of prepares you for these moments, good or bad. But the beauty of life is that it should never be alone. Whenever you have a conversation with an individual, realize, do they feel alone? Because it affects performance, it affects who they are as people. And when you think about that, and then you go back to this quote, some people plot your downfall and end up paving your breakthrough. Even when you do feel alone, or you feel like everything's against you, or me sitting in Chile for those first 3 months trying to figure out how to speak Spanish, even though everybody told, or my teacher told me I would never learn it. Those things kind of engrave in your mind of, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do today? What are you going to do tomorrow? What are you going to do the next day? Are you going to sit and just in that sorrowful state, or give up, or say, woe is me, any one of those? Or are you going to take the steps necessary to really take yourself to the next level? Because this is totally true. Some people plot your downfall and end up paving your breakthrough. Every single thing, every failure you have, what are you going to do from it? If you choose to do something with it, you're paving that breakthrough. But if you choose not to, then you're just choosing to give up. But here's another part of that quote, is they thought they were hurting you, but they pushed you closer to purpose. I think about this all the time too, of sometimes we're going to say the wrong things. We're not going to say everything perfect. None of us do. I can tell you multiple examples of me as a leader where I've walked into rooms and you say the wrong thing. And when I think about that, I think of, okay, sometimes my direct reports are going to come into the room and say the wrong thing. Lead with empathy. That's the one thing I can say, is lead with empathy in those situations. You know, this episode of this podcast, I have all my podcasts I have lined up of what I'm going to talk about. And this one is different because this is coming from my heart. Not that all of them don't, they do. But I just turned on the camera and started speaking today because I felt like it was needed. I felt like somebody needs to hear it. That as leaders, even though you may seem alone, or you may seem like things are crumbling around you, or you're going through a hard day or a hard week, we all do. But that there is somebody who cares. It could be a loved one, could be a parent, could be anybody. And if you don't have anybody, I wish that I could be that person for you, and hope I could be. That's my whole point in all of this, and what I'm trying to create and to build for people and for leaders is an avenue where they can learn how to just be better. Yeah, do I teach a lot of different things? 100%. But teaching one thing and taking one thing makes us 1% better every day. You don't have to learn everything in 1 day or 2 days or 3 days and think, oh, I'm going to be an expert. I'm still learning today. I'm still studying. I'm still reading. I'm still applying new things. Even with my kids, it's funny how a lot of these things mirror each other. In leadership, when you get your first team, oftentimes you're sitting there, what do I do? What's a one-on-one look like? And you just kind of go with what you were taught from individuals in your past. And it's funny because when my wife and we had our first child, it's much of the same. You're like, what do we do? Now we have to take care of this human being and help them grow. And people can give you advice and oh, read all these books. Here's everything. But here's the honest truth. You don't know. And you learn on the job. And yeah, I'm going to make mistakes. I've made mistakes with my first daughter. I've made less mistakes with my second child, third child. Yes, I do have 6 kids, and so each one I've got to try new things. And I know that I'm doing whatever I can to also improve that. But leadership is the same. The first team you get, it might be bumpy. That's okay. Keep trying. The second team might be better. The third team is going to be even better. The fourth team is going to be even better. And even by the sixth, seventh, eighth teams, whatever it may be, or 10 years down the line, you're still going to make mistakes. But that's the purpose of life, is we make mistakes. We learn from them. We grow. We get better. And we gain confidence from that. Just like me sitting in Chile, I gained confidence in myself, knowing that if I put in the effort, and yes, God does play a role. He helped me get where I needed to be. And same thing with what I think of my dad, PATC. It's gotten me here today. And it gets me to tomorrow. As long as I think positively, especially in my thoughts, and then I go forward with confidence in everything that I do, I have to be confident. And sometimes my confidence will get rocked. I'm not saying I'm perfect at it either. There are some days where my daughter will come in crying, and it's maybe because something I said, and you become a little less confident. But then you always have to remember again, when we fall, how do we pick ourselves back up? And just like I got on today to share this, I hope that anything that I said today can resonate with you and to help you be a better leader or a better parent, or just be better in life, be a better human being for your neighbor, for the person next to you, and realize we're all humans. We're never going to be perfect, but we're going to try. And trying and effort is the only thing that's required. And as long as we're doing those things, we will be successful. And that doesn't mean your world won't get rocked occasionally. But again, what we need to do is lead people, lead deeper, and lead well, and go forward with PATC in our mind, and we can accomplish great things. Thanks for listening.